Welcome back to another part of the series. I finished it, should you. Here I talk about all the animes I've watched in the past season and tell you guys all about it. So while everyone else is hyping up the new shows coming out, I'm here to tell you lazy fucks about new shows that you can actually binge. As always, I've ranked these shows from highly recommended to watch it if you dare. So without further ado, our first anime, my most recommended for this season. KyoAni's back, baby! Well, they have released a few movies after the unfortunate incident, but this is their first TV broadcast return, and I am just happy for them. Now, full disclosure, I was never in the Kobayashi hype train before, so when they announced season 2, I was like, fine, maybe I will watch it. Which even then took a while before I could finally sit down and watch the first season, and let me tell you, this series is absolutely adorable. I guess I was just so fatigued from Slice of Life that I immediately threw down Kobayashi as just another one of the many. I forgot that we're talking about KyoAni here, the masters of Slice of Life. And with season 2, KyoAni has proved once again that Slice of Life just hits different when they're handling it. What else to describe it other than it's a slice of life? It's very hard to describe Slice of Life without describing it as Slice of Life, but it's a great Slice of Life. Animation is god tier as expected from KyoAni. The skits are very entertaining and wholesome most of the time. And for those who haven't watched the first season, the show is literally just a dragon who decides to become a maid. Become Kobayashi's maid. And for those who've seen the first season, the characters are still the same lovable dragons you've come to know from before. And there's even a new dragon in the family. She doesn't become the main focus of the show. I think her screen time was similar to Alma's from season 1, but her character is a good addition and I love her chemistry with the other new character. And also, there's a lot more dragon lore in here as well. Or, I guess, dragon backstory from some of the characters. I like that. And all in all, it was just what I needed this season, a fun slice of life from KyoAni. But if I were to insert a personal nitpick from mine, it would be that this show feels different compared to the first. It still feels like the same show, but I did notice that the one handling this season was a different person from the one who handled it in season 1. But don't take that as a bad point, it doesn't really hinder your enjoyment of the show, and in my circles it seems that I'm the only one to have noticed that. So definitely go watch it, after watching the first season, of course. I will say this was the most surprising one this season in that I didn't expect it to be this good. The case study of Vanitas is a vampire show involving Noe, a vampire looking for the Book of Vanitas, a book that can possibly be the detriment to the entire vampire race. This venture becomes a bit more interesting when Noe meets a man who claims to be Vanitas himself. One thing I will say when watching Vanitas since the start is that it just gave off the feeling that the people working on this anime just knew what they were doing. Or let me rephrase myself. It felt very polished. The dialogue was well paced. They somehow do exposition quite well. The animation was amazing with Bones handling this work. The editing was snappy. A lot of frames felt like they just cut at the right time. And I know I sound pretty obnoxious right now, but trust me, I am. Of course, I had to look up the staff behind this, and to my surprise, it was directed by the same person who did a lot of the Monogatari shows, most notably Nisei Monogatari. This explains why each scene is just masterfully paced. The music was good, but how they incorporate music is even better. Honestly, the technical stuff are just the little things that I always like to point out, but once you watch a lot of anime and just see how a lot of studios do the standard anime formula, it starts to get noticeable. But here, I really did appreciate how well put everything was. I love our two main protagonists. Their dynamic together was really fun to watch. It's not the normal straight person and idiot duo. They sort of switch roles a lot, and in some moments it comes by surprise, which helps more in its comedic effect, but generally all the characters here were fun and interesting. And oh boy, let me tell you, it's very rare that I come across an anime where I can enjoy both waifus and husbandos at the same time, and this anime just has it all. Every character still has a story to tell, and I'm interested in seeing it, and even the world that was built here has some deep lore that will keep you interested throughout your watch. And at this point, season 2 has been announced, so I can't wait for that. It's hard not to compare this to Eva because I feel like any anime that's inherently deep, you immediately compare it to Evangelion. But man, let me tell you, I thought it would take me years until I'd find another anime that just gave me the same feeling as Eva 3.0 plus 1.0 did. But I finished this anime at 4 a.m. and just sat on my chair staring blankly at my monitor. Sonny Boy is about an entire class that suddenly finds themselves not in their school, which is not a good sign. In fact, they have no idea where they are, and that was the premise of the show. But in regards to how the story progresses, I would say that there's almost no plot, because the entire show is essentially just a life lesson. Sonny Boy is my favorite anime of this season, but the reason it's not on top of my list is because this is not something that I would easily recommend to anyone. This is a type of show that definitely requires multiple viewings. And I am very biased towards the show because before the anime released, everything was already building up to a show that I would definitely love. And I can say, in all honesty, that I love this show, but I don't understand it, and I will definitely rewatch it. To describe an episode visually, it's like looking at one of those acclaimed paintings. To the general audience, they would just see it as a painting. It looks like a good painting, but you know that there's some deeper meaning behind that art. And this anime is exactly just like that, if I couldn't be any more pretentious. The show marvels both in the messages they want to tell in each episode, but also the technical side here. It just feels so raw and traditional. It feels like instead of a bunch of producers arguing in a room about how they can make more anime by overworking a bunch of staff, it felt like producers and animators just came together and went like, hey guys, I have an idea. You think you're up for the job? And they did it. And they did not cut any corners with it. This is definitely not a seasonal friendly show, which is why I encourage multiple viewings, or at least a binge viewing of the entire show. The animation is not excessive, yet they know how to create this atmosphere that just feels so real. And I think the sound design really helped in that aspect, because a lot of times the sound just fits the setting that they are in. There were so many moments in the show where it just lost me, yet there I was just mesmerized by what they were showing. This just reaffirmed my love for Shingo Natsume as a director, and I can't wait to see his next work. The most entertaining show of the season. Imagine harem as it's supposed to be. An actual harem, like an actual polygamous relationship. I know this is really trashy, but it is up there as my personal favorites for the season. As a man who's not into harem animes, this was just a really fun ride. First off, the scenarios are similar to a standard harem anime, but because of the added polygamous situation, it makes these types of scenarios so much more entertaining than frustrating. One problem I get when watching harem is the fact that the protagonist could be the smartest, self-aware Chad in existence, yet they're the most dense when it comes to relationships. Here it's almost the complete opposite. We get a super idiotic, dense protagonist that is so stupid it becomes self-aware, and it gives me anti-frustration vibes. The characters are so over the top, it's just so fun to watch. Saki and Naoya remind me of that one couple from Churezure Children where they do skits all the time. Minase is just precious. Rika is a YouTuber I would simp for, and Shino is low-key probably gonna be best girl. But that doesn't change the fact that I will stand by Saki. The direction lends well to the over-the-top story. It's quite difficult to explain, but I appreciate it more when shows like these at least add their own style to it to make it stand out. Like I'm talking to you, Doga Kobo and Field Studios, because when you look at some slice of life or comedy stuff nowadays, creators just rely on music when it comes to delivering a punchline. Kanojo mo Kanojo has its own style that's not unique but does make it stand out from a lot of other shows nowadays. Overall, fun, trashy show. I enjoyed it from start to finish, and if there's no announcement for season 2, I might just go ahead and read the manga. This one's a bit of an insert because I didn't know it was releasing so soon. So, Star Wars Visions is basically just Star Wars the anime. It's not canon to the main movie timeline, but it does take place in the same universe. And also, it's an anthology series, so each episode isn't even connected to one another. Now, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I've only seen Rogue One and thought it was pretty good. But I do know a bit about the Star Wars universe, mainly through memes and just pop culture references. And what I can say about the series is that this seems more like a show to get anime fans into Star Wars rather than the other way around. Because as an anime fan, I was having fun the whole time watching this. I know 6 out of the 7 studios that animated this series, and watching how each studio present their own version of a Star Wars anime was just a fun watch. And I say that this caters more towards anime fans because the shit they do here definitely seems like they were given freedom to do whatever they want. An example of this was the first Trigger episode, episode 3. There's a scene there where Star Wars fans are just gonna be like, what the fuck was that? Or maybe even casual fans would say, what the fuck was that? But if you know Trigger, you'll just look at that scene and be like, yeah, that's trigger, dude. Maybe a bit more enthusiastic. But yeah, that's what I love about the show. I love that they were able to express their own iteration of a Star Wars anime. And something like the Saiyan Saru anime, where the animation is just so Saiyan Saru. And that TOB1 episode was very cute. But I know for a fact that it's gonna throw Star Wars fans off. I feel like most Star Wars fans will find episode 5 their favorite, which was done by Production IG, mainly because it probably has the most normal art style in the whole series, and it also has a really great story with a really nice reveal in the end. It's even funny how I watched the 4th episode, and then right as the music kicked in, my mind just went, is that Kevin Penkin? Gosh damn, his soundtracks are nice. Next to that were the Science Saru ones. But yeah, Star Wars Visions was a real fun time, and I think I'm now considering on watching the Star Wars movies. It's the wholesome show of the season. The Duke of Death and His Maid is about a boy who was cursed at a very young age. Every living thing that comes in contact with him dies, so he was sent by his mother to be locked up in a mansion. Then one day, a lovely maid was hired to take care of that boy. The maid was different as she treated the boy like a person, unlike everyone else who abandoned him. That was the premise, but forget about that. The show is just a rom-com with a bit of spice and it's pretty cute and wholesome. The one thing I like most about this show is how the interactions between the two main leads sort of go somewhere, even if slightly. And I feel bad when I try to describe good rom-coms because all I can say is the same thing I've said for all good rom-coms, and this one is no different. As much of a spoiler this is, by the end of the show, their relationship definitely progressed from what it was in the beginning. And I appreciate that because so many one-season rom-coms like to blue ball the audience and not give them any sign of progression. Other than that, probably the girl blushes a bit more red in the end. There are some really heartwarming scenes, but all in all, check this out if you want a comfy, wholesome rom-com in a Victorian-style setting. Let me sell you this show. You like Konosuba, right? You're waiting for a season 3. Well, just think of this as the same thing. Make You Black Company is an isekai show about a guy who gets, well, isekai'd into this world and has to work under a black company. This company is a company that's ruled by greedy assholes. But guess what? Our main protagonist is an even greedier asshole. Another fun show with some fun characters and a fun journey. Make You Black Company is what Combatants Will Be Dispatched should have been. Not in terms of the plot because they have a pretty different premise even though the running joke is the same. Here, our main character, Ninomiya Kinji, is an absolute greedy son of a bitch with a slick tongue that can woo his way into some quick opportunities. I do have to mention that if you aren't into these asshole type of characters, you won't have fun in this show. Actually, you might in some parts of the show because there are times where our protagonist fails in what he's trying to do. It's somewhat a power fantasy, but it's not entirely that because the story sometimes takes a turn and it's either good or bad for our main characters. And that's what I think is what makes this show so good. One episode you could be thinking to yourself, okay, our MC is pretty stable right now. That should mean that something bad's gonna happen. But then next episode, you just see him progress again. I'm not saying that's all of the twists. Sometimes the opposite happens as well. All I'm saying is that how the story flows can sometimes take a turn for the ridiculous, and it's absolutely entertaining. What's even more entertaining is how Kinji gets his way around certain situations. This man is an absolute jerk, but his fucking charisma, man. It's like he leveled his speech skills to 100. And I think one thing that makes his personality a bit bearable is that he is going up against a big company. But then again, at some point, he becomes even worse than those greedy scums in that company, and the sheer ridiculousness of that situation makes it even more hilarious. Add to that a good cast of supporting characters that help balance out the asshole presence of our main lead and bring a bit of rationality to what he's doing. It also helps because it does sometimes bring out a good side of Kinji and makes him likable for an asshole character. But last, I do want to mention the animation, which is one thing I always nitpick in these types of shows. I'd rather have a show with this type of art style but with decent animation than a JC Staff looking show that has shots that look like Food Wars but poorly animated. I hate that I bash on JC Staff a lot, but it is what it is, and that is my personal opinion on it. So yeah, really fun show about an asshole character. Go watch it. This is literally just relatable. The show. Uramichi Oniisan is about these children show actors who basically are just fucking human, as all actors are. But because they're kid show actors, it turns that situation into something funny. Even if you're not at that age, and by that I mean fucking old, there's still some things that young adults can relate to in this show. Its whole running joke is basically, this is reality. It's cruel, and you're fucking old. And it's done in a really comedic slice of life way. Best part about this show, I would say, is the casting. All of the main cast are absolutely superb superb in their roles, and I'm just a simp for Mamoru Miyano. What can I say? I don't know why I'm explaining this show anyway. It's fun, but it's not that deep. If you want something to relate to with your depressed grown-up ass, then this might just be the show for you. Another power fantasy isekai. I wonder what new gimmick they have this time. So, Tsukimichi is about a teenager who gets transported to another world and is given OP powers. An isekai. So basically just another generic isekai trope, right? Well, don't skip just yet, because let me tell you, Tsukimichi is actually a fun isekai power fantasy story. Forgot to breathe there. And I don't know if it's just the seasonal anime that's rotted my brain, but I actually think that this anime is good. The show does everything in the isekai light novel formula, checks every little box that equates to a generic anime, but for some reason, it just does it well. I mean, yeah, it has an OP protagonist, sort of a harem, a little bit of self-awareness, and just an overall fun story. See, if I compare this to some other OP fantasy show, like that kid from The Last Dungeon Boonies, you guys ever heard of that anime? No? Well, of course you haven't. That show is trash. But this, even if it is generic, I'd add this to a list of my favorite isekai shows. Animation was pretty decent, and let me tell you, pretty decent is already high up there in my book. So bottom line, it is just another seasonal isekai show you can skip. But if you are feeling that itch, then here's a show for you. Alright, another isekai. Realist hero, literally in the title, is about a realist guy who was summoned in another world. Isekai. To save a kingdom. And he will. Just not how the kingdom expected a hero would do. Alright, I'll make this quick. I think I like the show as much as Tsukimichi, but for different reasons. It is pretty generic, but I like the concept of being overpowered in a different sense. It's basically my junk food show of the season. Honestly, it's not boring, but you will forget this show in a span of a season. I definitely think that the source material is definitely good, because I wouldn't have been entertained otherwise. And the main character is pretty cool, so I dig that. Wouldn't recommend you watch it, but I will be watching season 2. Probably the most okay anime for me this season. Bokotachi no Remake is about a guy, almost at his 30s, who looks like he's not really doing well in his life. He keeps losing his jobs and just can't get the dub for once. Then one day he wakes up 10 years in the past where he just graduated high school. You guys probably get the gist of it. It's a high school drama. One thing I can say about the entire show is that it feels very light novel-esque. Obviously because it's being adapted from a light novel, but other than that, you can tell that it's being adapted from a light novel. Yeah, it's Feel Studios. So many of these adaptations, especially the high school drama stuff like these, that just can't get it right when you're turning it into animation. We have Haruhi Suzumiya as a brilliant example. Why not just copy that formula? But other than that, I can kind of see what they're going for here. Our group of friends, each with their own talent, try to make it through college and make stuff as a team. As always, I have a huge love for filmmaking and that sort, so seeing how they try to tackle these kinds of stuff is pretty cool to see. Although it doesn't always hit, it's mostly just a general surface view of the process of filming. It's no love letter to filmmaking. It's just used to give some traits to our characters and to have a plot. Like, this guy's a scriptwriter, and that girl's an actress, and our MC is a director/producer. But it doesn't make it bad. I just want to point that stuff out because I do feel very strong when it comes to these types of stuff. The pacing is somewhat messy. Sometimes the story felt a bit rushed, and the ending was a bit of a cliffhanger. The emotional scenes sometimes fell a bit flat. It is very melodrama. But hey, I love my Dajun stuff, so I'll probably cry at the smallest things. So, for my final thoughts, despite it being somewhat generic, the anime manages to give me that superficial motivation I needed that day, and I will probably read the light novel since I am quite interested in the story. Wouldn't recommend it though. The Detective is Already Dead is about a detective who's already dead. First thing you'll have to take note is that this is not a mystery anime. It has mysteries in it. There's a detective main character, but this is not a mystery anime. It doesn't intrigue you with its mystery. It's no Monogatari or something. To sum up the whole show, it is a mess. The genre in this show switches so many times you don't even know what the show is about anymore. Like, they tried to be a detective show, but failed so hard at it. And then deadass fucking lizard people start showing up in the mix. I don't know if this was the source material or the way they made the show, but it was just an utter mess, as well as the pacing of the story. Spoiler alert, the detective is already dead, so the many interactions our main protagonist gets here is shown through flashback episodes. But fucking hell, it just ruins the pace of the show. What's even worse is that the flashback episodes were better than the present day ones. Characters are absolutely boring, reflecting off the personality of our main protagonist, who's also a walking cardboard cutout of a protagonist. I get his personality, but they could have done something with his delivery of lines. Siesta as well is just bland waifu bait. She's like the 02 of the season. You guys remember 02? This is really just a seasonal show everyone will forget in a span of a day. Not gonna recommend it. And that was all for that. Jeez. I apologize for the late upload, but shit's been busy on my side. I made a video celebrating 200 subs, but I'd like to thank you guys again for that. Really, it's fucking awesome that you guys are still here. I want to promise that next end of season, I'll be able to actually upload this shit on time. That wasn't really a promise to you guys, that was a promise to myself because I really need to get my schedules fixed. But anyway, I'm still trying to figure out how I'll make my next video. But hopefully, it won't take another month and a half. But that was all that I had to say. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one.